They laughed at her for marrying a motorcyclist. They said she threw her life away, that she traded luxury for mud. No one saw what lay behind that calm gaze and the old engine echoing in the distance. But what no one imagined is that this simple man hid a secret capable of changing everything. This is just one of the stories you need to hear, so subscribe, because what comes next will surprise you. She was born into a home where the allure of appearances was valued more than the warmth of love. From a young age, she learned that a person's worth was measured by the clothes they wore, the surnames they carried, and the places where they were seen. She grew up surrounded by demands, hearing that she needed to marry well, maintain the family's standard, and never bring shame to the name she had inherited. But inside her, there was a silent unease, a desire to experience something real, something that didn't depend on status, but on feeling. That's when he appeared, a simple man, with a sunburnt face and a tranquil smile that seemed out of place in her hurried world. He arrived riding an old motorcycle, the roar of the engine breaking the silence of the still city afternoons. He didn't wear a suit, he didn't speak with rehearsed words, but every gesture of his had an honesty she had never known. The stares started early. Her friends whispered, her mother frowned every time she saw him park in front of the house. "A motorcyclist, is that what you want for your life?" she asked with disdain. But she knew, for the first time she knew, that it wasn't about what others wanted, it was about what she felt. When she decided to marry him, her world collapsed. The family dinner turned into a trial. Her father, ashamed, could barely look his daughter in the eye. Her mother, furious, shouted that she was destroying the family name. The words were so harsh they felt like stones. "If you walk out that door with him, never come back," she said, her voice cold and firm. She hesitated for only a second, and then left. Life by his side was everything that luxury couldn't buy. There were no mansions or parties, but there was laughter in the simple mornings and complicity on cold nights. They shared the little they had and transformed everyday life into something light. The motorcycle, which had once been a source of shame for others, became a symbol of the freedom she had always wanted. It was the sound of the road, the wind on her face, the feeling of belonging to something real. Even so, the wounds of the past still ached. Sometimes, walking through the streets of the neighborhood where she grew up, she would hear whispers and laughter. "Look at that girl who gave up everything to live with a biker." The neighbors mocked her. Old friends avoided greeting her. Some made a point of showing pity, as if she had wasted her future. She pretended not to hear, but inside her heart ached. There were also many difficulties. Money was tight, the days were long, and dreams always seemed more expensive than they could afford. But amidst all this, something kept them strong. Pure love, silent companionship, and the certainty that they were together by choice, not by convenience. On Sunday nights, he would fix his motorcycle in the garage, and she would watch him, admiring the calm way he handled each part, as if every screw had a story. He never complained, believed in him. Even without understanding what attracted him so much to that simple life, she sensed there was something more behind his silences. Sometimes he would become pensive, gazing at the horizon as if carrying a past he preferred to hide. She didn't ask, she respected the mystery, she trusted in love. Months turned into years, and even amidst the difficulties she never regretted it. Because, deep down, she knew she had found what she had always sought, someone who loved her for who she was, not for what she represented. But fate still had plans she couldn't have imagined. While the world continued laughing, judging and pointing fingers, something was brewing, something that would completely change the meaning of that choice. Love, which everyone called a mistake, was about to prove that sometimes the most beautiful truth hides beneath the simplest disguise. Months had passed, and life continued at its simple, quiet pace. The young woman had grown accustomed to sideways glances and whispers behind her back. The love she shared with her husband was a refuge amidst the storm, and even though money was scarce, there was peace. But fate, as always, had a cruel way of testing those who choose the path of the heart. On a grey afternoon, as she was returning from work, he received an unexpected call. On the other end of the line, his sister's voice sounded shaky, almost unrecognizable. "Mom's in the hospital," he said. "It's serious." The words seemed to echo in a void. The ground disappeared beneath her feet. Even after everything, instinct took over. She ran. She arrived at the hospital breathless, her heart racing. She saw her mother lying there, pale, surrounded by tubes and machines. The doctor was direct. She needed urgent, expensive surgery. An amount that exceeded any possibility the family could afford. Her father, with a dejected expression, held papers, trying to hide his tears. The arrogance that had always surrounded them seemed to have vanished, replaced by despair. She tried to approach. The mother opened her eyes for a moment, but seeing her turned her face away. The silence cut through more than any words. The daughter tried to say something, to explain that she wanted to help, but was interrupted. "You made your choice," murmured the father, his voice heavy. "Now, let us sort it out." She left there with her heart in pieces. She cried on the sidewalk, feeling once again like that rejected girl who only wanted to be loved. The motorcyclist found her hours later, still sitting on the curb, her eyes red. He didn't ask any questions, he just hugged her. In the following days, she could barely sleep. She thought about her mother, the surgery, the family who still saw her as a disgrace. Her husband, always calm, watched her in silence. One night he held her hands and simply said, "Trust me." She tried to understand what he meant, but he looked away. The next morning he was gone. No explanation, no letter. The motorcycle was no longer in the garage. The following days were a mixture of fear and uncertainty. She tried to believe he would return, but doubt gnawed at her. Had he given up? Had he finally grown tired of the humiliations and run away? Or worse, was he involved in something dangerous? Meanwhile, the mother's condition worsened. The hospital warned that time was running out and that, without payment for the surgery, nothing could be done. The family panicked. They sold what they could, asked for help. The money was nowhere near enough. Then suddenly, a phone call changed everything. The surgery would be performed. Someone had paid for everything, every penny. The doctor mentioned an anonymous donor, someone who didn't want to reveal their name, just signed the papers and disappeared. The news left everyone confused. The father expressed his gratitude, trying to imagine who could have been generous enough. The sister believed it was some distant relative. The mother, weak, simply cried, unable to understand why anyone would help her like that. The daughter learned the news from the hospital television, watching the doctor's hurried movements. She felt a mixture of relief and something she couldn't name. Part of her wanted to believe her husband had something to do with it, but logic wouldn't allow it. How could he? He could barely afford the rent. The days dragged on. The surgery was a success, and the mother began to recover. But the emptiness remained. He still hadn't returned. No message, no sign. His absence weighed more heavily with each sunrise. Every night she lay staring at the empty side of the bed, wondering where he might be. The sound of the engine, which once brought her peace, was now just an echo in her memory. And inside her, a painful question arose. Had she lost the love of her life at the very moment she needed him most? Little did she know that his silence wasn't abandonment. It was sacrifice. And that the mystery behind that anonymous donor hid a truth capable of changing everything she believed about love, loyalty, and destiny. The days passed slowly, as if time were afraid to move on. Her mother recovered little by little, and the tension that had once dominated the house transformed into an uncomfortable silence. A silence made of guilt, unanswered questions and glances that avoided meeting. The surgery had been a success, but no one could understand who had been capable of such a grand gesture. The hospital refused to give any information. All they knew was that the payment had been made in cash, without identification, and with a clause: the donor's name should remain confidential. Even so, rumors began to grow. Some said it was charity from some institution, others believed it was an administrative error, but deep down, something inside her said otherwise. That week, she returned home alone. The room still smelled of him, his jacket thrown over the chair, his helmet on the table. The motorcycle, however, remained absent, as if the sound of the engine had taken a part of her soul with it. The silence weighed heavily, and it was in that silence that the phone rang. On the other end of the line, the hospital administrator's voice sounded calm, but heavy with emotion. He explained that the donor had left a letter with instructions to be delivered after the patient's discharge, and that, despite the request for anonymity, the name needed to be on the official record. She went to the hospital that same day, her heart racing, her hands trembling. Upon receiving the envelope, he recognized the handwriting. It was his. The world seemed to stop. The name, now confirmed in the documents, Ethan Carter, the man everyone thought was just a motorcyclist with no future. Inside the letter, the words were simple, yet laden with emotion. He recounted that he came from one of the wealthiest families in the state, heir to a company that carried the weight of an empire. He also explained that years abandoned everything, the money, the power, the family name, because he realized that the world he lived in was made of appearances and self-interest. He wanted freedom. He wanted to live without having to prove anything to anyone. But when he met her, something changed. She was a reminder that purity still existed in love, even amidst vanity and indifference. When he saw her suffering because of her sick mother, he knew he couldn't stand idly by. He used part of the fortune he kept secret to pay for the surgery, asking only that no one know. Not out of pride, but because he wanted the gesture to be pure, without rewards, without the spotlight. Tears fell before she even finished reading. The words seemed alive, pulsing between her fingers. He had disappeared not because he gave up on her, but because of love, the kind of love that sacrifices itself in silence. That same day, she returned to the hospital. Her mother, still weak, greeted her with a confused look. That's when the doctor entered the room, holding the updated medical record, and revealed the donor's name. Silence fell. The mother put her hand to her mouth, incredulous. Tears came uncontrollably. He saved my life," she asked, her voice trembling. The daughter simply nodded, crying. Days later, he finally returned. The sound of the engine echoed through the street, and this time no one mocked him. The neighbors came to their doors, surprised to see the man they had previously thought was just a vagrant. He entered the house without saying a word, only with that serene look she knew so well. The mother, still weak, stood up with effort. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then she approached, extended her trembling hands, and embraced him. She wept, begging for forgiveness. "I judged you, and I almost lost my daughter because of my pride." He just smiled. He said there was nothing to forgive, that life was too short to hold grudges. That moment changed everything. The family, previously blinded by vanity, understood the true meaning of wealth. Not the kind measured in numbers, but the kind revealed in actions. That night, as the sun set, she looked at him and realized that their love had become something greater than any prejudice. What had begun with scornful laughter now ended in respect and admiration. Because in the end he didn't need to prove who he was. Love showed it. Years passed, and time healed the wounds that pride had inflicted. Their life remained simple yet serene, without luxury, without ostentation, only with what truly mattered. The small garden at the back of the house blossomed each spring, and laughter filled the air once more. The mother, now frail but full of tenderness, spent her afternoons knitting on the porch, watching the couple she had once sworn she would never accept. The daughter, with a more mature perspective, saw everything with silent gratitude. Sometimes she recalled the past and wondered how she could have doubted her own choice. By his side, she learned that love is not about what you have, but about what you give, the time, the care, the gesture that no one sees. He remained the same, simple, serene, always with that smile that carried a peace difficult to explain. The neighbors, once mocking, now greeted them with respect. Many still talked about what had happened, repeating the story like a legend that swept through the neighborhood. The woman who married a motorcyclist and discovered he was an heir. But for her, the fortune never mattered. What transformed her wasn't the money, but the way he chose to love. In silence, without expecting applause, without needing to prove anything. One afternoon, she sat beside her mother in the garden. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky orange. Her mother held her hand and whispered, "I thought I knew what wealth was. Today I realize I never did." She smiled, and in that instant she understood that forgiveness, when born of love, has the power to rebuild everything that time has tried to destroy. Life, which before seemed like a road full of dangerous curves, was now just a calm path, traveled hand in hand. Every now and then he would still take his motorcycle and call her for a ride. The two would cross the same streets where they had once been the subject of laughter. Now, every glance they received carried respect and admiration. And when the wind brushed against her face, bringing back memories of pain and overcoming, she smiled, because she knew that, in the end, love had won. In that simplicity, there was a beauty that the world rarely understands. Neither of them needed much. Just each other's presence, a hot coffee in the morning, and the certainty that they had chosen the right thing, even when everyone said it was madness. Years later, when telling her story, she proudly said that she had learned the greatest lesson of her life. True love is not measured by appearance, money, or status. It reveals itself in unseen actions, in silent sacrifices, and in the courage to continue believing, even when the world laughs at your faith. And that's why, every time someone asks her if it was worth it, she answers without hesitation, "It was worth every tear, every doubt, every look of disdain." Because it was in those trials that she discovered the value of love that does not seek applause. It only leaves marks. Finally, gazing at the horizon, she utters the phrase that has stuck with everyone who heard her story. Some laugh at what they do not understand. Others silently experience what true love is. And when the old motorcycle's engine roars down the road, it's as if life is responding, reminding us that love, when pure, never needs explaining. And you, in her place, would you have the courage to follow your heart, even if you were humiliated by everyone? Comment below what you would do. I will read each comment with great care. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers so you don't miss the amazing stories coming soon. Click on the video that's appearing for you. I'm sure you'll be moved. Character